So fast forward a few months, yeah, it's just been it's been very busy here. Been out of town a bunch. It's now January of 2022, so I don't know when the last time I actually was doing this. It was months ago. I was rebuilding the seats, so I've redone that. I put the interior back in. It was just a lot of the same, sort of taking stuff out, putting stuff back in. It's really pretty straightforward. It's kind of a pain, but the only other thing that I did that was different that I probably didn't talk about, put the dash back in, put the stereo, the stereo that was in there, it still works, so I just put it back in and wired it up to the speakers, new speakers that I'd put in. Let's see if I can get you to see in the back there, in the same hole. I still don't have the door cards. They're so messed up just from years of use. There's like this corner's broken. There's these terrible square speaker plates put in them, so I'm thinking I'm just going to buy new door cards and swap those over. So I'm not really going to put those in for right now. It's a little dark, and this lens is filthy. So hold on one second. All right, that should be better. So I put the dash back in, put the stereo in, redid the bottom seat here. It doesn't match now very well, so I'm going to have to order the whole kit. That was kind of dumb. Don't know why I thought it was going to match. Put the old carpet back in. I had ordered new carpet, but it was in... the problem is this is an AC car, so it has that big AC unit, like this thing, the blower unit that's in here. It messes up the way the carpet goes in. I guess it's a little different, so didn't do that. But just get the thing running again. So that's what we're going to concentrate more on, is getting the engine back together, because I need to put in the fuel pump down there. Everything's just kind of sitting in here from when I moved it. I need to clean up the engine bay, need to put everything back together again. I also have new cams, so I'm going to take this off, clean it up. Just need to do a lot of cleaning. If you remember, the reason I had to take the entire interior out and get it done is because the storage facility I was using, the unit next to mine caught fire. They shot a bunch of water into the ceiling, which collapsed the drywall onto the car, and I still have to... It's still just like filthy, so I need to clean that off. But yeah, it's finally winter in Florida. It took forever to actually be winter, so it's now not hot in my garage, so I can actually work on this. Okay, so here's what we have. So from Wes, I had I got one of a new, what are these called? Thermostatic actuator. So that one's been rebuilt. I had one, and so I think actually I might send one back, or send it back, because I know these are getting it hard to find, the units themselves. So I have an extra one. Sent him the fuel injectors. Those have been rebuilt. And then the other part that I got is, the big expense was this bad boy, the fuel pump. This is, if you've never seen one out of an Alpha, this 2000 Alpha, this is what the fuel pump looks like. It's, it's very similar to a, it's like the same sort of technology you'd see like in a diesel, kind of similar, where it's mechanical, right? So it's actually driven off of this gear here, which is keyed to this crank that's attached to the engine. It turns this crank here and moves, basically it has little pistons here, 4 little pistons inside here, and it actually squirts gas into in through the fuel injectors. So it's mechanical. It also has a bunch of wizardry built into this back piece of it, it's basically like a big mechanical computer. That essentially what I was told is don't touch it. send it to Wes Ingram, and have him and wait the. You know, he's backed up. I think he's kind of the only people doing them, rebuilding these. So you have to wait a while, but it's worth it. When I was doing that, what I decided to do, he asked me if I wanted to do the standard pump or to run the better, like basically hotter cams, you know, the street performance cams. And I said, well, sure. So that's what I ordered from Centerline. These are the two different cams. New tappets, the things that the lobes hit, you know, as they rotate around. These are the metal caps. They'll make a lot more sense when we crack into it. And then you have, so this is the PC452 and the PC455 street performance camshafts. So, yeah. So anyway. Through these you guys, and then yeah, so that's what we need to do. We need to put this. So luckily, Wes includes basically instructions in the packet of how to change this out. They've added a red dot to make everything lining up because there's no real good mark on this on the original pulley wheel. So adding that red mark and then allowing that to line up with stuff, it makes it a lot easier to time, get it all together. So I'm going to read all of this, and then we're going to like get knocked in to see how we get some stuff out of the way. We'll do the camshafts later, so we'll put those back in the box with this stuff, because that's going to be a separate project. So, all right, let me read some stuff, and then we'll get on it. All right, so the first step, so basically after reading this, the SPICA red dot pulley system basically is something they've come up with. Sorry, I've just removed some nuts I'm not supposed to take off. Anyway, I thought you had to move the, I'm sure now that I'm putting this back on, you're going to have to remove this. I'd remove the pump from the base, but doesn't say that. So I'm going to try putting it on with the base on. It's like, it's on there pretty tight, so it's hard to get off, so I don't really want to mess with it if I don't have to. So anyway, onto the red dot system. So in the old way you did it, you had different timing marks. There was an I mark on the crank pulley that was for timing this particular unit. So it's different than top dead center. So it was off a little bit. So it basically was kind of a pain, because then once you put everything back in, kind of when you get it ready to go, you've got the distributor in, you've got all the other stuff that you have to get it in place to get it to go right. It's really difficult to set it because it's hard to see, and it's just not as easy. So they basically make it a lot less confusing by establishing this red dot on the crank, on the pulley that goes to the pump. And this pulley is driven by a belt that goes to, that's driven off the crankshaft. So what you can do though now with the system, the way they've got it set up, is this timing mark here that's on the front, there's just a little timing mark on the front of the pump. You put the pump in, then you just line up this red dot with that, and this aligns with top dead center, with cylinder 1 top dead center, with the valves closed. So if you can check all that, and you know that's exactly where it's supposed to be, which you know is a pretty handy thing to know how to get to anyway, because I have to reinstall the distributor, or I have to do a bunch of stuff that I still need to, I still need to know how to, like, I need to know where that mark is to get everything else lined up. I'm also redoing the valve. I'm redoing the camshafts. So obviously that's you need to know where that is. So anyway, now that you know where top dead center is, then you can you just line up the red dot and you're done. You don't need to worry as much about a lot of the other, switching it over. And they said that also here in the instructions, it comes with instructions. So it comes and says, even if you want to double check your work, you can rotate the crank on the thing to the mark that's marked I on the crank, and then this still has the old, where is it? Right there. this still has the old timing mark on it. So you can check, you know, if that aligns with this timing mark on the pump and it's set to I on the crankshaft, then you know that you got it right. So it's just a way to double check. But this makes it a lot more straightforward because top dead center is the red dot to the timing mark, and then you're done. So, okay, well, the first step is to get this pump back mounted in the car. Put the crank on, put the drive pulley on, and yeah. So I'll bring you back when I get these nuts back on, and when we're trying to put this thing in the car. This is installing this pulley is pretty easy. There's the kit comes with a key that goes in this keyway, and the spring washer and the nut that you need to mount it. So that's pretty straightforward. So okay, I'll bring you back when we get inside the engine bay. Alright, so here's the engine bay again. So where this needs to go is there's 4 bolts down here, studs that come out of the block, and that's where you need to get it on there. You need to make sure that this is all cleaned out in here because it's kind of gooped up, and there's still some gasket material here that I need to clean off. Try to get it as cleaned up as humanly possible to make sure that that surface here, the gasket's nice and clean and goes right on this area. The other thing you need to remember with the base of the pump, it gets oil through this there's a little hole at the top left here. That's where the oil comes out. There's a green plug in it to keep the oil, I assume to keep, they probably shipped it with oil, but to keep the oil from leaking all over the inside of the package. There's a little green plug that you just need to make sure that you take out that green plug, because otherwise you're going to be in a world of hurt. If you try to mount it with a green plug, then no oil is going to get in there, and then your pump will explode or burn up, imagine. So you want to make sure that's clean. It comes with the gasket. The kit from West comes with a gasket, comes with the there's another little O-ring for this port down here, and so there's a seal on this that's the other part of the oiling system. I don't know which one is the lead and which one's the return, but there's one here, one here. Just need to make sure they're cleaned up. Make sure you put the little O-ring on the pump base. Make sure you put the take the green plug out. Make sure that you have the clean gasket on it, and you should be good. Let me clean this up, and I'll bring you back when I'm putting the pump in. Okay, so I've got it all cleaned up. Got the new paper gasket. See it? Oh, there it is. Paper gasket. I'm going to put that on here, like that. Like that. Okay, then I'll go get the pump. This is a pretty tight fit if you have the radiator in, but if you take everything off, it isn't so bad, as he says. Just snake it in. There it goes. That's pretty much how it should sit. Did realize that you need to take the, it's a lot easier to attach the bolts to there if you don't have the pulley on. So I'm going to take the pulley back off. It's very easy to put on and take off, so I'll just go ahead and do that. So. Okay, it's in. I will say this, it is a gigantic pain in the butt. So the issue that you run into is, let's see if you can see it on the front. Let's see if there's a way to see it. If you see right here. That's the only nut you can get to. The rest of them, you just have to kind of fish your arms underneath there and do your best. It's a lot of very small movements with the wrench where you're getting like a 1/8 of a turn on each nut. So just be patient, maybe come up with a couple other projects to deal with at the same time. Paint a cover or clean something to take a little break. I need it for my back at least, so that's my advice. It's in, and I need to change the battery. Alright, so the next thing will be to put on the pulley, hook up the wires. I'm going to have to figure out a way to, because they have a warning on these guys that you can do not crank more, don't tighten these down. It says, caution, over torquing fuel nuts can ruin pump. Max torque 15 foot-pounds. So I don't have something that does torque for like a end wrench. Might do a Harbor Freight run here in a second. But for now I can get the pulley on and get the fuel lines plugged in and get some of the wiring plugged in. In addition, there's a little bracket back here that has 2 nuts and bolts. That's pretty easy to put on. And then I'm cleaning up, there's a cover that goes over this when you put the belt on. Put that on. Yeah, so just plow ahead, I guess. And then I put the fuel injectors in, just hand tight for now. So I need to crank those in, obviously 15 foot-pounds apparently. I don't know if that's so, because those are going into the block, so I'm not worried about messing up the block, I guess, as much. But if I'm going to torque them all down, I might as well torque them all down. So the other thing I'm going to do is, once I put the pulley on and get some other stuff in, once I get these cranked down, I'm going to wait to put the distributor in just so I have room to do it. I'm going to vacuum up some of this residual stuff from old coolant. Yeah, and just kind of clean up while I have the chance to get in here. So that's what I'm going to do. Yep. So this pulley has a little half moon key. Goes in spot there. And this up with it. Yeah. Has a little lock washer and nut. Goes down. It's 19 millimeters, which don't have a 19 millimeter socket, so I'll tighten that down and then I'll show you some of the plugs and stuff that you need to plug in. Okay, so I've got a bunch more stuff cleaned up, and I figured out how to do my 15 foot-pounds, I mean. So I've just got this, and I do have a set of these, like, it's pretty handy. So just go on there, and hopefully, I'm not mechanic, physicist, so I don't really know engineer type. I'm assuming that if this clicks, tightening this down, this clicks at 15 foot-pounds, that is tightened to 15 foot-pounds. That's the going theory, so that's what we're going for. So we can do that. Tighten those down. I'm also taking the opportunity, here let me show you, taking the opportunity to replace the short fuel line from here, from the filter to the intake of the pump. So I've got some fuel lines, so I'm just going to replace that. These are kind of crusty and old. I'm also probably going to not hook up the feed line, because the gas in here is probably fine, but I would just paid a whole bunch of money to redo the pump. So what I'm probably going to do, I don't care about the fuel pump in the back, but I really don't want the SPICA pump to be messed up. So what I'm thinking of doing is taking the feed line, the input line for the fuel pump, just putting extra hose on it, getting a bucket, turning the ignition, the fuel pump on the back on, and just draining the tank. I don't think there's very much gas in there anyway, but I don't want to put old gas through this. So I'll probably do that, get new filters, swap out the filters and everything, but at least drain the tank of gas. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'll fix these, and then I'm going to tighten this, and those 4 fuel lines, and then tighten these down. And then the only other thing I'm wondering, and I'll have to look this up when I can find the diagram. I know I've labeled the 2 wires that were going to it. This one is the rear of SPICA, so that's pretty handy, and that means that's the cold, because that's coming basically right off of the, this is coming off of a tab that's basically connected directly to the line there, I believe. And then this goes to this is the cold start solenoid. It's more light in there. And then this one is labeled micro switch. I had to replace the end, which I had replaced the connections on the old pump. But the micro switch, which is on the bottom, now has 2 wires coming out of it. Male and a female. And then I can't for the life of me remember what this one is. So I'm going to have to look those up and find out all the wiring connections, just make sure that I'm getting all that stuff wired correctly, so I don't destroy everything right out of the gate. So that's the other thing I'm going to look for. Yeah. So anyway, I'll get on it. All right, first on the list is a new fuel line for the, I believe this is the return. I think so. But this might be the intake. Yeah, this is the return. That's the input. But I know I said I was going to put the extra line on it, but let's just put this line on it for right now. These things are annoying. This one's, while you're down here, the issue with a lot of this stuff, when this engine bay, this engine is not huge, but the engine bay is really cramped for putting all this stuff in, because it was, it's designed to have carburetors, sit here. The SPICA pump's down here, which is just makes it just really difficult to get yourself lined up with things. And so when the stuff is out, replacing these fuel lines when the big air box is out of the way is really pretty easy. I mean, I'm sure it's with the carburetors it's the same deal, but while you have the opportunity to do certain things, you should just go ahead and do them. These fuel lines weren't leaking or anything, but they're a little crusty and old. So it's just a couple of these. This one's a lot newer than the other one. Ow. Alright. Wondering why my knuckles are so torn up. So, let's cut another one of those. So this is the other old one, and it's just, not flexible anymore. This one's better, but the new, here's new stuff, and it's super wobbly, super flexible, so considerably better quality, and as long as you match the interior diameter, which this does, then you might as well go ahead and replace it. It's not very expensive stuff. I usually cut it, I use the old one as a kind of a pattern. Cut a new one, and you can even use, if these are still work. And clean them up a little bit. If they still work, then you can just still use them. So then over here. This one here in the back is kind of a pain because it has the nut holding on this filter canister. See if you can see that. I don't know if you can. The nut is like right in the way, like the hose rubs up against the nut holding the filter to the, like they didn't leave enough space for clearance between the where the hose goes in and let's cut this too short. That should be fine. So the hose runs into the top of the bolt coming out of the bulkhead. It's really annoying. Alright, I'll just mess with this and get these on and bring you back. Okay, so that is a gigantic pain in the butt. So, come on, focus, focus, focus. Alright, so these are all in, the fuel injectors. That my wrench setup thing worked just fine. I hope that's right. These are hard to line up because they're these pressure valves or whatever, and they're the hose like brake line and stuff, and they have this little bolt that kind of goes around them and then tightens up to it. That's pretty hard to do. You have to get them exactly lined up. Down here, it's next to impossible unless if you see over on the back here, there's a bracket that attaches to the pump right here that goes up here and has these little these little line holders. If you take this clamp out and just take this bracket back off, for some reason I thought this was attached to the block, but it's actually just a thing that holds these these fuel lines. Just take this off, and then that gives you enough wiggle room. And then what you do is you start with the back one, so you have access to it with the wrench, and then you do the second, third, and then fourth, or it's probably backwards. That's probably 1, 2, 3, 4, or whatever. But you do this one last, the one toward the front of the car. That seemed to work the best, or seemed to work, because it wasn't working before. So I'm going to take a break for a second, and then come back out and see if I can get some energy to do any more. But otherwise, SPICA pump is in. The belt needs to go on. Distributor needs to go on. Radiator needs to go in. Airbox needs to go in. The belt needs to go on. Do that before I put anything else on. Get it timed right. Take the valve cover off and see what I can see under there, and just, not valve, this top. Valve cover. And see what I can see. And then, because I need to take that off to get to the cams anyway, take those off, but I want to make sure I read up a lot on doing the cams, because I know that's, it's tricky. So, anyway, yeah. Belt on, timed, set the timing up right. Might do that tomorrow morning when I'm just a little more fresh, because this took a lot longer than I thought it was going to. But anyway, yeah, so moving right along. Okay, so we looked up the wiring diagram, and it's pretty simple, actually. Get this hose out of the way. There are two lines that come out from the micro switch. This one, the female, just goes to this guy here. This one straight from the engine goes on the cold start side. And there's this wire, which is white, is the one that goes to the micro switch. Now I replaced this end and the end on here, and just mixed them, had it backwards from where it was. So I just need to clip this off and make it into a female to go with this male, and then the wiring will be for the pump will be done. And then what we'll do is we'll move on to installing the belt for the because it goes way, I'll show you, but it's like way in the back. It's like it's the smallest pulley, the farthest back. And because this is an air conditioning car, it has 2 extra belts. Let me show you. So down here on the pulley, it has space for 2 belts that run the AC pump. This runs the water pump and the alternator over there. So there's a one that goes around here, here, and there, but you have to put the, if I can even get down there, if you see it just back there lined up with there, you can see that there's a gear, the same teeth, the toothed thing that drives this, and it's the last one, so you have to put that belt, the SPICA belt, on first, and it's a pain because you have to like kind of feed it in. There's a little fin that's here. It's a pain in the butt. I just cut it to take it off, so I'm not going to do that. Obviously, it's not an option to put it back on. So, want to first fix this wiring. Then I'm going to take the top cover off for a couple of reasons. I just want to make absolutely positive for sure that piston 1, top dead center, valves closed. And again, after I put the belt on, next thing will be putting the distributor back in, getting that set up, and then getting the water pump and drive pulley on, the radiator back in, just sitting over there, all the hoses, everything hooked back up, anyway, it's a lot, so we'll get across that bridge when we come to it. We have replaced this into this wire with one of the kind of, the female type instead of the male. Connected this up. This connects to a terminal back here on the top of the starter, so it's basically draws power right there. This is the cold start solenoid. This is the fuel shut off solenoid, I think. I don't know. There's not a lot of wires back here. I just wanted to make sure that I was getting it right, so I double, triple check. So this one, there's 2 wires that come out of the micro switch. One goes to here, one gets power here. I think this is off of, just looking it up, it's like off of fuse number 6, I think. So these can all get hooked back up. This is the fuel pressure sensor. Okay, so next up, we're going to take off the cover, top cover here, just so we can have access to, make absolutely positive for sure, and also get kind of our bearings on when we do the next phase, which will be probably the next video. I'm not going to get to it in this one for sure. Go after the cam swap. So first we're going to take off this cover. It's pretty easy. There are 6 bolts here to the top. I think I've taken this off before on camera to clean up the bolt heads and stuff. Can't remember. I think they're all bolts. Can't really remember. Get a pan here. Oh, that's right. There are these weird, like, bolts that have almost like the internal thread on them. Oh yeah, so this one, the stud came out with the bolt. Oh, you have to connect this breather line here. Oh. And don't forget, like I just did, that there are two right there. Two bolts right there. So we'll get the wrench and get those off. They are 10 mil. And they are a nut and bolt. They're the nylon ring and these guys worn out. We need to get some new stop nuts. But all right, now it's free. There we go. Yep. All right. Yeah, so for those people who are not familiar, the engine has a dual overhead cam with this chain. As long as the chain is tight, chain is good. The new cams are going to go in here. These are the I was talking about, these tappets, these little puck looking shaped things that actually that the lobes of the cams actually ride on. So you want to make sure that both of these valves here for number 1 are closed, and that the piston is all the way at the top. This aside. The easiest way to do that is to use just a big long screwdriver. In there. That seems like it's basically at the top, and then you get I use a breaker bar like this, big breaker bar with a 38 mil deep socket. You would normally need this, if you don't have an AC car, you don't need the deeper socket to go onto the bolt on the crank, because I've got those two extra kind of pulleys kind of on the end of it, I do. So you can just feed that on the end, and as you move, you can move the engine, and you see the lobe here is pushing down on this puck. Well, this one's coming up. So now the lobe is off of both of these pucks on the front, and that is, the piston is very much at the top, and you can actually see as you move it, you can see the screwdriver go up and down. So you just... So there is at the very top. Now it's starting to go down again. Right there. That will be top dead center. So we can put the plug back in so nothing gets in there. And we know that both, if you look through the different parts of the cam, you'll see here and here the lobes. You see how the lobe is off. Nothing's being pushed on there. The lobe is off of this. This one, the lobe is basically straight up, but on this one, it's pushing down. Again, up on this one, pushing down there. This is the so easy way to determine what the intake and out exhaust side are. Intake side is where the intake is, and exhaust side is where the exhaust comes out. So this 4 is off on both sides as well, but we're not concerned about that. We're concerned about 1. That means it's probably, this is at the top of its so intake just closed, as we saw, it's going this way. So intake just closed, fire, and the exhaust should be opening. So that's how you determine it. I'm going to double check this, and then I'll come back, make sure I'm right before I say anything or publish this video. Okay, good thing I checked. So I'll just leave this boo-boo in here just so you guys don't make the same mistake. I noticed that there are actual there's timing marks on the camshaft. Here's the one on the bearing. I'm sorry, one on this bearing cap, and then one on the camshaft. Somebody had marked both of them with a red pen, which is very helpful because that helped me figure out that there's one on the other side. So essentially, what you want to do, according to the book, I put the distributor just kind of sitting back in there. You want that thing facing down. You want this mark to line up. And you want, let's see if you can see it, the timing mark to be on P. So that's the top dead center for our purposes, I believe. So I'm going to continue, I'm going to look back. I don't know if I've shown you this before, but this book is really helpful. It's not entirely correct. You have to make up for it by finding stuff and printing it out. But this book is very helpful on just like refitting everything and what all the timing marks mean, considering that P, F, M, and I don't make any, they make perfect sense in Italian, don't make any sense in English. So I'm going to keep reading, make sure I got it right, and then we can move on with putting the belt on. All right, we're going with that. The top dead center, number 1, if you're doing the red dot thing, so don't do this unless you've got this setup, this mark on your pulley, or yeah, on the gear that drives the pump. Don't do it because it is different if you're using the traditional method with, you have to align it with I. So if you look up like help on one of the forums or something, it's going to be different advice, so go with that. This only applies to this red dot one. So top dead center for cylinder number 1, make sure that that's right. Make sure the timing marks are aligned on the, if you're paranoid like me, make sure that the right timing marks are aligned on the overhead cams. One of the things I had to do to get so once everything's like lined up and you got it all right and you're set on P, one of the things I had to do, and I don't know if this is just different on my car or not, but the timing mark, see a little red arrow thing? that gets in the way of the belt. So I had to put this thing in, set it up as P, make sure not to touch the engine at all, take that little arrow thing off with that bolt that was sitting in front of it, and feed the belt in, and then put that. And then the first thing I did was reinstall that little red arrow. So make sure that the timing mark is still good. So that's not my favorite, but it worked. So we're gonna continue on. The belt is just a big pain in the butt to put on. Everybody says it because it's very, very tight. They said if you put WD-40 on it, it should help. So hopefully that will help. And yeah, so hopefully I can get that on, and then we can move forward. So I'm not going to have you just watch me swear at the belt. I don't think there's any trick to it. You basically just have to kind of He-Man it on with some WD-40. So that's what I'm going to do, and I'll bring you back when I have it on there. So hopefully that's not too long from now. Well, I don't know what everyone's complaining about. That wasn't that bad. I actually didn't even swear. So the WD-40 I think helps a lot. Basically, if you can just get it so that it's kind of on a gear and just on this kind of flat part in the front, if you can get it on there, so basically this edge of the belt is kind of even with this, and then you can just work the crankshaft, and it'll kind of work itself onto the teeth. So the good thing is I not only did that, did the belt go on, but it went on with the red dot lined up with the timing mark. The timing mark's there, lined up. You can't really see it, but the distributor is lined up, and so now we're going to check to make sure that this is pointing toward P, and it is. So I would say that that is a win. So SPICA pump officially completely installed, except for the thermostatic actuator, which I'll do now. Just once I make sure that I'm done with this side of the engine for now, because it gets in the way quite a bit. So just need to make sure that it will go on. Probably going to use the brand new one that I just got. And then maybe see if I can just set this back to centerline or something, or get the $75 back. I just want to have these things back in circulation because I know they're really difficult to find. So I'm not going to do that until I get the whole thing working, but that'll be next. So I'll put that in. That's not very exciting. It's just putting stuff in and swearing because you lose these screws that hold the bottom plate in. You lose them a lot. It's very frustrating. But anyway, so yeah, I'll do that, and then I will bring you back in when I finish. Alright, so what we've done is put the thermostatic actuator back in. The new one had the holes here at the top were just a little too close together, so I just used the old one. I mean, it's not that old. It's only like it probably has 50 miles on it or whatever. I'm sure it's still fine. So just a tour of kind of a summary of what we did. We reinstalled the pump. We reinstalled the fuel injectors, attached the hoses, these stiff metal lines, reattached all the wiring, installed the belt, made sure the timing was all right. We've put all the wires on that we need to put on. Need to secure these a little bit better. And then I put on the connecting rod. The way this works on the SPICA versions is it, as you throttle, is kind of connected by these short little metal rods that are adjustable. It looks pretty, like when you put the pump on and it's ice cold, it's supposed to be this gap. Let's see if I can get the... there is a gap between that it's got kind of the red screw and the bar as it kind of articulates back and forth. That gap is supposed to be really big when it's ice cold. It's not a big deal. What ends up happening is it warms up. As the engine warms up, this thermostatic actuator here pushes, there's a little piston in this, and it pushes down a tab that's adjustable inside the pump itself, and it pushes it down, and that leans the mixture, I believe. Yeah, so it basically just leans it out. You know, like I said, there's like a mechanical computer inside here. So it leans it out, so that it's basically, at first, you know, when your car's cold, it has more gas, and then it leans out over time. So that's probably going to call, I don't know if I'm going to have any more time today to do anything else. Plus this is getting probably pretty long. But the next bit will be reinstalling the distributor, which is actually really simple. It is putting on the, you know, just putting everything back together. I'll film all of it for sure, but I'm not going to do anything without filming it so I get some more episodes up. But I will put this one up since it's been a while. I put one up that I actually ended up filming like months ago. My first, kind of, you know, almost like a year ago. So it'll be faster. There'll be more than that. I'm getting pretty close. I'm hoping to get this car done this weekend or next, next weekend or the weekend after, because there is a car show, like a amateur car show at my kid's school that I'd love to be able to get it into. So, anyway, that's where we are right now, and I will see you next time. Thanks. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started on the buttoning up the rest of this stuff. First things first, I'm going to drain, like I said, I'm going to drain the fuel out. So I'm going to hook up the battery and the fuel pump, put another fuel line on. I'm going to do that before I put all the all the stuff back together, just because I don't want to deal with like taking the airbox back off and all that stuff. I'll probably leave the airbox off when I'm for starting it and stuff. Or I may put it on, I don't know, but I still want to do this while I have a lot more space in here. I'll get the fuel line and extra fuel container and pump out the fuel that's in the tank. So that's what I'm going to get started on. Alright, so I put a fuel line out through the space in the radiator to fuel tank right there. I'm going to hook up the battery for the first time in like a year, and just going over kind of all the electrical stuff, make sure nothing is sitting, just wires sitting on things. The wiring is hanging down in the compartment in there, but I don't think that's going to be a problem. I might cinch that up real quick before but I have the battery back here. So again, with the air conditioning, takes up the space, so they've relocated the battery on this car back to the trunk, because usually there's a tray that goes kind of in this area, but that's usually where the air conditioning pump is. So let me do another quick once over, and then we'll get started. Hey, so I'm here editing my video. The reason kind of ended abruptly, I went to go try to get the fuel out of the fuel tank, and when I turned the key, nothing happened. So I started diagnosing it, some electrical problem. There's a fault somewhere that is pretty universal. So I'm going to have to probably, in this video here, it's pretty long anyway, start a new video, which is where we figure out what happened. I'm thinking that it had something to do with the fact that when there was the fire in the storage unit and they soaked it, water got on some of the electric components places, the relays and some of those other things in there, and I'm hoping that we can figure it out. I started diagnosing it. Don't worry, I didn't get very far, so we'll be able to see all that stuff together. So anyway, that's a bummer. Sorry that we didn't get much farther on this for this episode, but next episode, hopefully we'll tackle some electrical problems. All right.